Delighted to welcome our patron, Her Royal Highness Princess Beatrice, to share some thoughts about dyslexia and how it has affected her over the years. She is very keen to promote this notion that dyslexia is something we don't need to cry about. So I'm going to hand over to her, just prompting her with a couple of questions with regard to what she might like to say to you. So Princess Beatrice, the first question I have for you is, how did you learn that you had dyslexia, and then going on to think about the difference it's made to you and how it actually affects you?
Hi. Well, firstly, let me say hello, Bernadette. Thank you so much for arranging this amazing podcast. It's wonderful to be able to talk on a subject that I know quite so intimately, and I hope that by everything we discussed today can kind of go on and help young people that are also figuring out what it is like once you are diagnosed to realize that this is a gift. Dyslexia is a gift. And that's what I've really truly come to believe about the way that my brain works, but the way that I think. I truly believe that dyslexia is the opportunity to think differently. And when I was diagnosed very young. I got diagnosed at sort of 6 or 7 years old, and my signs were kind of quite apparent that I was a young person struggling with reading and struggling with spelling, and words just sort of felt jumbled. And I remember one of my earliest memories is sitting in front of a Beatrix Potter book, and just wonderfully the illustrations were so beautiful, but the words meant nothing. And I then was sort of put into specialist classes, and I remember the teacher looking at me saying, I was sort of looking at her aimlessly, sort of. I remember one of her comments was, why do you keep, the words are not written on my face, we gotta go through this. And it was, when you doing all the work that I've done over the last few years, especially with championing dyslexia, is something that we really need to focus on in schools. You learn that it truly is something. It's truly sort of a badge of honor that you get to approach life differently. You get to learn from it in different ways, and thank goodness that I was lucky enough to have great teachers that were able to spot my condition and were able to provide the necessary support. And this is one of the reasons why we need to do everything that we can to support teachers, to make sure that teachers have the adequate tools, to make sure that everyone in the classroom can get what they need out of their work. This is not just about those with dyslexia. This is about young people and giving them a chance to feel the necessary support in the classroom. And I want to take this opportunity as well to say thank you to all those wonderful people that have helped me along the way, including the Helen Arkell Center, and what Helen has done for this industry. I feel so lucky and blessed to that this wonderful lady has created this legacy, and then I get to be a part of it.
I love all the things that you say, and just reflecting back on a couple of them. You talked about it helping you to figure out how your brain worked, and you also talked about it being a badge of honor. And what I would love would be to create a society where we could help everybody in that situation to figure out what it is that's making their brain work, and also helping them to realize that it is a badge of honor. And actually, I was thinking, with the lack of information that teachers sometimes have in schools, and the lack of information that parents might have as well, I just thought about this yesterday, looking at the campaign about elephants being an endangered species. I actually think that wonderful brain, that badge of honor, might become an endangered species if we don't educate people more about what they have to offer society.
I think you're exactly right, Bernadette. And this is I think lack of information. I think also lack of information can lead to a huge amount of anxiety, especially and especially for parents. And because when you first get the I mean, it's not even, I mean, I hate to use the word diagnostics, but when you start to realize that somebody close to you has got dyslexia, you immediately, parents immediately think, oh my gosh, I've done something wrong. Like, is it me? I think you worry about your children to such a degree, and I think that there's so much pressure on in academia, and you want your child to do really well, but I think we have to be aware that we need to make sure that parents have the right tools, and it's, I've been lucky enough to sit with amazing parents and amazing young people that are learning about this for the first time, and they are all, it is confusing. We don't know enough about the brain's capabilities and what we can truly and what we really truly can achieve, and the school systems, I think, you've got a lot to pack in to one school year. So I think that we need to, one of the things that I'm really passionate about and working with you on as well is making sure that parents know that this is something that there are people out there that can help, and there are people out there that do have the tools, and we just need to make it easier and more, and bring about a sense of community about this. This concept that having dyslexia is your brain's way of processing things differently. So it leads to you thinking differently, and I think that's a huge thing that I want to, hopefully we can help parents to understand.
We have talked about maybe the problem is not so much in the children but in the curriculum that they're forced to attend to during school. And since that conversation that I had with you, I thought of a book that we have here, which is called Smart Kids with School Problems, and actually making us think maybe the problem is not necessarily in the child, maybe the problem is in the way that schools are looking after this particular group of children. Would you agree with that?
I think I think there's a lot of pressure. I think there's a lot of pressure in schools. I think we underestimate how much we're having to do in the school day and the school life, and I think that the pressure on academics it's phenomenal if you're an academically minded person, but if you're not, I think that we need to make sure that those formative years allow for every child every child to have that chance to explore who they are as a person. And I was very lucky that I got great extra support, and I love learning. I hate exams, but I love learning. And I think I think the curriculum, there's so much to put into it. I'd love to, if I had a magic wand, I would love to see more tools for teachers, so that they could really balance, could really learn, how to balance their time and what they have to do, as well as give children of all different capabilities the right to find who they are.
Well, that's a great message, and certainly one that we want to promote very much during Dyslexia Awareness Week. From the lessons that you've learned with going through life so far with your dyslexia, what in particular would you like to share with other people in a similar situation?
I would say that I would say the one thing I've learned is that I think I think school life, you've got so much to do. Those are really formative years for young people, and I think that once you're out of school life, I think that's when a dyslexic truly can excel. And I feel so lucky that as you go into adult life and as you go into the workplace, your ability to think differently allows you to be more creative. It allows you to approach problems slightly differently, and it allows you to a little bit more flexible. And as as I said, we live in an age of technology and wonderful things like spell check and being able to type, and being able to dictate and being able to use these tools. I think the workplace and the sort of entrepreneurial spirit that comes from thinking differently is a wonderful, and I'm learning how to do this every day. I have to learn how to cope with it every day. I still spell things wrong, and I still can't really proofread that well, and I still have to have I still have to read every email a million times to make sure that it's correct. But I think that's something that makes me more methodical, and I think I have to think through things, and I hope that once the people listening to this recording, that when you are in school, that's the tough bit, and then everything you've learned in school becomes part of your life, and that's when you truly, I think, a dyslexic can kind of come into their own. And other examples of great entrepreneurs who have gone on to do phenomenal things, and school was hard for them, but they're now able to channel their ability to think differently into something quite phenomenal and do something for the greater good.
And this is a great number of people for whom we often say school days may not be the happiest days of your life. It's actually when you get through school you can start to do what you specialize in. I want to thank you for being such a great role model, right across the world, and just, to conclude by saying, is there anything else that you would like to say to the loads of people who are going to be tuning into this during Dyslexia Awareness Week?
I think if I could leave with my final message and notes is that being diagnosed with dyslexia was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because it allowed me to become part of this phenomenal community of people that really are championing young people's education, and making sure that we protect our young people for in school and in life, and make sure that we can do our utmost to get to look after our young people so that we can have we can give them the best chance in life. And that is what I am thrilled about, and I hope that any young person listening to this knows that school is tough. School is tough, but you also are part of something much bigger, and this is a huge community, and together we can really make a huge difference in the world.